Welcome to our session on powerful education policy. My name is Alyssa Ree, and I'm joined by my three amazing colleagues who are going to introduce ourselves, and then we'll get into the session.
Welcome. I'm Christine Bedgery. I am the Assistant Superintendent over Curriculum, Instruction, and Leadership at Westwood ISD, located in Palestine, Texas.
I am Angeles Munoz, and I'm a fourth grade teacher in Benton ISD.
Ron Coleman, the Educator Recruitment and Development Specialist at the Texas Education Agency here in Austin.
And still Alyssa Ree, Lesson Study Specialist, also from the Texas Education Agency in Austin. We're so excited to have you today to learn with us about why and how TEA is building these pipelines to recruit, support, and retain diverse and high-quality educators. We'll also explore how programs like Grow Your Own, Lesson Study, and Principal Residency serve to elevate the impact and the professionalism of the field of education. And we'll review throughout our session how these programs generate excitement and leadership opportunities for both our current and future educators. And now I'll turn it over to Ron to talk about one challenge we've seen in the field.
Thank you, Alyssa. The first challenge that we see at the state level is that interest in teaching has declined significantly over the past few decades. On the next slide, you're going to see a figure, 4%. So in planning at the state level, we often ask the question, at what rate do high school students want to become teachers? Well, recent SAT data indicates that that number is about 4%. We'll go into detail about how the Grow Your Own competitive grant is situated to combat this total and increase the perception of the profession over time. But first, Christine, you've been a grant recipient for multiple years. Is student interest in Westwood ISD comparable or disparate from the broader national figure that we see here?
I would say previously, before receiving the grant, it would be very equivalent to the figure that we're seeing. But after receiving the grant and full implementation of the education and training pipelines in our school and getting an industry-based certification as a paraprofessional graduating high school, we're seeing more and more of our students that are graduating wanting to go into education of some sort, whether that's teaching, wanting to go specialize in coaching, be an instructional coach of some sort, or a curriculum specialist. They are showing much greater interest with the redesign of our program and implementation of the support, such as FCCLA and programs that kind of go along with that. So definitely a larger increase over the past 2 years, which would be a little different than that figure there.
Yeah, great. And we know that the other piece of data that kind of matches this challenge, right, in workforce demand is that parents and caregivers, even if students are interested, might be giving kind of a different message there. And we actually see here in 2018 that there was kind of an inflection point where more parents were actually against students becoming teachers than in favor, whereas back in the 1950s here we saw that these were completely the opposite directions. I know we've seen from you and heard from you all that after receiving the grant, right, student interest picks up. What can you say about recruitment, or what can you say specifically about the education and training courses going on in Westwood that has really sparked that curiosity and kind of increased the perception?
I think a big part of the pipeline is the practical and the students getting to actually go onto the campuses, work side by side with the teacher, teach small group intervention with students. And that has really generated their interest. I think that our students are very aware of this grant that we have received. And we actually have a couple of students that had quite a few hours in college upon graduation. And then, obviously graduated with that industry-based certification. And they came back to be a paraprofessional while working on that degree in hopes of knowing that this grant is out there to help them finish that as a financial support so that they can dedicate, a teaching career here and serve our students here at Westwood. So definitely a large increase has came. And then even after graduation, they're wanting to come back to be a part of the grant in a different pathway of receiving that bachelor's and teaching certification.
Yeah. And from the agency side of things, we can see in grant reporting data that even in the midst of a pandemic, Westwood has very comparable data in student interest, even with that practicum course not being in person and not getting that kind of hands-on experience educating. So we just commend you for the intentional work that y'all are doing at Westwood, and thank you just in support of all the students, the state of Texas. We really appreciate everything that y'all are doing. On this next slide, we did mention that we would go kind of into detail with what the Grow Your Own grant is, right? If you're listening in, right, we know it is to increase educator pipelines, to increase the perception of the field of education. Specifically here at the agency in the competitive grant process, we are awarding funds to districts who have identified not only a need, but have put a plan in place to implement this grant with fidelity. And so Christine, I mean, at the campus level, what is that $8,000 to $10,000 in grant funding support? What does that do for your campuses, and what does that do for the district at large?
Absolutely. The $8,000 to $10,000 when we first started the program and the pathway, because it's a series of courses that students take throughout high school and then hopefully graduate with that industry-based certification to generate that interest to go into either teaching or being a paraprofessional while in college, or possibly go into the teaching field. But it helped us kind of kickstart that to get the supplies, the materials, and whatever we needed on that end. It also helped us with a strategic recruitment of a very highly sought after teacher that is really impacting students, and students want to be in their classroom. It helped give them a stipend so that we can work on retention of keeping teachers in this pathway. And there's not a revolving door. She's been a steady teacher in all of these classes for us. And then lastly, the FCCLA has been a big part of this program. And we actually, in the midst of the pandemic in the spring, we had not competed in a while. And our students went and competed in the end, did not get to go on, but sent in things virtually and collaborated that way, and actually won quite a few awards for the first time. And so we were really excited about that. So it kind of helps us in multiple different ways, from, obviously recruitment into the program, but then also retention of the teacher by giving extra stipends, and then providing those students with opportunities such as the FCCLA pathway as well.
Yeah, thank you for that, Christine. I think a very nice segue into how Grow Your Own is housed under Strategic Priority 1 here at the agency of increasing recruitment and retention of teachers. So Grow Your Own with Pathway 1 hits that from both levels. The campuses are awarded funding based on if they already have education and training courses, or if they are starting those programs from scratch. That's the difference between the 8,000 and 10,000 there. And we are helping districts to support the retention and professional development of certified teachers. And then the last part of Grow Your Own is Pathway 2, which is where we're supporting paraprofessionals, long-term substitutes, and teachers' aides with a direct pathway to not only certification, but also into the classroom as a lead teacher. Christine, can you just speak a little bit to any success stories that y'all have had with Pathway 2 at Westwood?
Oh, absolutely. We were very excited to get not just obviously Pathway 1 to help our students, but a lot of our paraprofessionals are going to school. They want to become a teacher. They want to be in education. And that's why they're becoming a paraprofessional, so that they can get that hands-on experience prior to the classroom. Currently, we are finishing up with one of our paraprofessionals that will graduate in May, and we have others that will hopefully be going in starting in August, this route. And the funding for that is helping with their tuition. I mean, helping with books. whatever it takes on that end and within the program guidelines to help them graduate while they're getting that hands-on experience. And it's really exciting because, for example, this individual already knows that they have a position within our district because they're committing to us because they want to be here. And that was a big incentive for them to want to be a part of the grant program, to not only help fund their college, their courses tuition, and then their student teaching, which they're completing right now, but also just to know I'm secure and I have a position and I know that I'm going to be able to filter right into it. And so that campus has actually been able to really mold that person and know where they're going to want them as a paraprofessional. So as soon as they graduate in May, that they're already ready. They're used to that routine. They've already had mentor teachers. And so I'm really excited to see how this individual does in the fall, to see if it's a much different story from fresh graduates that haven't had that experience, and then also alternative certification programs.
Thanks, Christine. Yeah, and Westwood ISD is just one of many districts that have come through our Grow Your Own program. We're now about to launch Cycle 4, and so Cycle 1 finished up last spring. And so here at the agency, we're just really energized by the work that's going on. We're really excited for the future and proud to serve alongside assistant superintendents and superintendents at the district level. Next, Alyssa's kind of going to speak to the second challenge that we're seeing at the state level that requires, powerful leadership and powerful educational policy to overcome.
Thanks, Ron. Yeah, so just like Grow Your Own addresses some of those early stage challenges for teachers and building that excitement about becoming an educator, we're also seeing some challenges later on in teachers' careers, where once they're in the classroom, we're actually seeing that a lot of teachers struggle to improve substantially year to year, and not by any fault of their own, but just because of the way that we've traditionally done professional development. So on this next slide, we'll see a graphic that was done that comes from a study by the New Teacher Project, where they looked at how much districts were spending on traditional sit and get professional development. You're in a cafeteria, someone comes to give you a presentation on a new strategy that costs tens of thousands of dollars per teacher every year. And we see that this mode of professional development really only improves about 30% of your student outcomes for 30% of your teachers. The middle 50% of your teachers get about the same student outcomes, and then 20% actually have worse student outcomes after some professional development like this. So Angeles, first I wanted to see, you're an educator out in the field. How does this align with the experience that you've had with professional development?
Yes. Our professional development before we implemented Texas Lesson Study, or that I joined the team, it looked very much different than what it does during lesson study and afterwards. So before, we just meet with our grade level and develop lesson based on the data that we collected at the grade level. And pretty much it was like, I would call it self-contained because it was within the grade level and the lessons were based according to the needs of the students of our grade level. And so now after, during the process of the lesson study, that absolutely changed in many positive ways. One of the ways that I see a huge change on it was when we started collaborating vertically. So we did have in the team a math interventionist, second grade teachers, and language art teachers, but the lesson was actually based on math. But we didn't have any barriers about I don't teach math, I don't teach language arts. We would just welcome any input and we all contribute. And we actually started by seeing we evaluated data from 5th grade and then 4th grade and 3rd grade. So we went backwards and we looked at the data as a campus and district, not just grade level. So we really went big versus small and stay self-contained. So that did change a lot, and so our collaboration and our vertical alignment of the TICs and the data that we gather and the development of the lesson was based on all the professional development that we implemented during the research of the SXSW study and the development of the lesson.
Thanks so much, Angeles. Yeah, I'm really struck by how it sounds like your team moved from looking at their work, your work in silos and just by your grade level, and really thought about how you can collaborate across contents and across grades. Christine, I'm wondering if you saw some of this change at the district level, or how much this data point was the case at Westwood as well.
Yes, absolutely. We started actually implementing this with our kindergarten group, which was kind of unusual in the year that we did this a couple years ago, because it had mostly been upper grades. And so we had started full day pre-K the prior year, and our teachers were really struggling with a few of the TEKs because the kids were really mastering them. And that was unusual to have them already mastering them. So we took those TEKs and started the lesson study on specific ones to really see how we could differentiate and accelerate instruction with these kiddos. So we had 6 teachers that collaborated on a math and a reading Texas lesson study, and went through the whole process of the research and the refinement, and then the actual recording of that for publication. And so they were really excited, and they saw a huge increase in their performance. Now we've kind of shifted that, and we are working with upper grade levels, specifically science now at this point. And they are loving it, to the fact that they are doing repeated cycles over and over, one after another. And we have instructional coaches, and we have even some teacher leaders that had went through another grant that have now taken initiative as a classroom teacher to start facilitating these within their team. And so we just have seen it, like Angela said, really pulling teams together and working and researching to find the absolute best strategy and instructional, I guess, tools that you could say to teach concepts to students for the best outcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I think both of y'all spoke so well to the fact that lesson study is really a vehicle for any teacher in any content, any grade, to collaborate with their colleagues in a number of different ways and think about how are we going to support each other to improve our student outcomes. And this works so well because it is content agnostic, and you get to just do what we know all great teachers do, but you have a system and some guidance to help you through that process. So lesson study really works with teachers to examine and understand the student data, identify some areas to focus on helping students improve their outcomes, then building on that knowledge by reviewing instructional materials and researched best practices that you then get to try out by teaching a lesson, where you say, okay, we looked at student-centered collaboration. How do we actually try this out in a lesson? And then what did we notice after we teach the lesson? What went well? What do we still need to work on? And then I think one of the most powerful things about lesson study is being able to share that learning with your colleagues, right? We know teachers are doing great work every day, and to have that opportunity to share with your colleagues and to share that great learning is so impactful. And so lesson study has reached about 2,300 teachers so far, who serve 75,000 students, which is only a small number of the great state of Texas. So we're excited to continue building this program. Angeles, I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit about your journey of how you found lesson study, because it is such a teacher-driven program and initiative.
Yes, of course, I would love to. I was working in the district, but I heard about Texas lesson study, and my campus didn't implement it back then. And so to me as a professional, it's always important to improve my practice, and so I'm always seeking for different ways to to just like master math skills or learn new strategies. And so I did transfer to a campus that was implementing Texas Lesson Study, and I was invited as an observer my first year. And my second year, I was part of the team for Texas Lesson Study, and I was honored to deliver the final lesson. And right now, I'm looking to continue with the lesson study. So it has been really a great way for me to improve in my practice and to deliver the best lessons and the best strategies that I can for my students.
That's awesome. And I'm wondering if you could also talk a little bit about how it changed your team and the way that y'all operate as colleagues and coworkers.
Yes, so before lesson study, we did met like on Tuesdays for team meetings, like I say, like grade level team meetings, and collaborated and evaluated data, developed lessons, develop assessments. And then during the Texas lesson study, we just feel the need to be just inside and outside classrooms. So we didn't ask each other permission. We just felt very open. And so we just went in and out classrooms and say, hey, I noticed that this thinking map is not working. My students did this and that. So the teacher that was delivering the next lesson, like she was improving it day by day because we were providing constant feedback, like during lunch, during the lesson, after school, before school. We didn't really have an agenda on a specific date or time, so that was really huge for us because we were just seeking to improve the lesson and deliver the best methods and strategies for the students because we wanted them to be successful on their learning. And so we have collaborated on ways that we never imagined before because we were so into it, especially in those 10 days, 15 days of the lessons that we have to deliver day by day and to be able to get to the final teach and continue with improvement.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it speaks so much to how you all are driven professionals and not only doing that for yourself and driving your learning for yourself, but also pushing each other to improve your practice and really be there to serve your students. And I think that level of leadership speaks to our next challenge and program. So I'm going to turn it over to Ron.
Thanks, Alyssa. Yeah, the last challenge that we're seeing, or the third that we're speaking about here today, is that teachers are leaving due to a lack of career development opportunities and low compensation. You can see with the data on this slide that when we look at personal versus professional and that split there, that 71% of teachers actually leave for professional reasons, not personal reasons. Going down into the bottom left-hand corner, when we assess involuntary versus voluntary departure, we see that 84% of this attrition is voluntary. And then the final pie chart on the right shows that when we see that career development and those pathways to kind of advanced opportunities, that far outweighs being a reason for leaving than actual low pay and benefits or other reasons. So when we look at this, the agency is looking to combat this through building another initiative that's actually been going on, coinciding Texas Lesson Study and right alongside Grow Your Own. So on the next few slides, Alyssa is going to speak to our Principal Residency grant and how it is providing high quality professional development and career advancement opportunities.
Yeah, so like Ron mentioned, there's a lot of things that are preventing teachers from staying in our classrooms, in our districts. And so the goal of the Principal Residency Grant is to combat a lot of these challenges. So the grant provides our local education agencies with the opportunity to find those strong teachers who are maybe coming from Texas Lesson Study or other programs in their district, who can partner with effective ed prep programs and then design these full-time year-long residencies for for principal candidates to build their practice as campus leaders. So Christine, I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit to your experience with the grant.
Sure. We have received this grant for 3 years, and with that, we have been able to run through right at 9 different teacher leaders. And so it has been really neat to see the process because after year 1, there was a residency cycle added in where the teacher actually came out of the classroom and was what we call an assistant principal intern. So they gained that on-campus knowledge as they were getting their degree and their certification here in Texas. And so these people that have done a tremendous job for us. The grant has supplied, part of their salary as well as, their tuition and books and professional development to really be a strong instructional leader because that's more of the focus is instruction. And then we have a focus on special programs as well with our residents. And with that, we have had quite a few of them move into either a director role within the district or a specialist role, instructional coaching. And then a few that have went back into the classroom after this and gaining the experience, they have become teacher leaders for us. They're leading Texas Lesson Study. And one of the instructional coaches that we had actually was a kindergarten teacher, did lesson study, and then went into this role and now is an instructional coach. So we kind of have some that are multifold layers from multiple programs and all kind of landing on this residency. So we've seen a huge impact of building an internal pipeline for our district where we don't necessarily have to rely on outside recruitment coming in since we are mid-sized school and we are rural.
That's incredible. Yeah, and I think if you've been paying attention, you've noticed that Christine has spoken to all 3 of our programs. This is a microcosm of how our 3 programs can be a pathway to leadership. So starting with Grow Your Own in the classroom, we're building excitement among students for the path to being an educator. In Lesson Study, we're really building teachers' capacities to be these strong instructional leaders, so that if they wanted to pursue the option in principal residency, they can become these campus instructional leaders that we know make important changes for our students. And so I'm going to turn it over to Ron to close us out.
Yeah, thank you, Alyssa. So we've spoken on 3 of our pathways to becoming a teacher here in the state of Texas. We do have opportunities to join the team at the Texas Education Agency. So a variety of, exciting employment opportunities. 2 that we're going to speak on in particular in our advertising to a wide audience. The first role is a systems leadership position, preparing certification and enforcement. And the second role is a grant management role. The Associate Commissioner of Education and the School Action Fund Grant Manager roles. If anyone is interested, you can find more information online on the employment page at tea.texas.gov. Thank you very much for tuning in here to our work here on the Educator Recruitment and Development team. We hope you found it informative. Thank you to Christine and Angeles for joining us and providing such poignant perspectives at the district level. Thank you both just for everything that you do in service of educational equity and educational advancement.